Aloha, this is some old guy in Hawaii, and this is a short but detailed look at the Hellshock, the legendary Model 1 pistol that drops from Gigamine on the Meridian Metroplex map on Promethea, and also as a world drop. It's based on the Model 1 blaster, and it always comes in incendiary and shock elements, actually with both. Additionally, bouncing the rounds off of a surface will cause them to strike the target as the non-selected element. If you select shock to strip the shields, then bounce them off the ground, you hit the target with fire, or vice versa. Okay. The Hellshock was arguably the best Model 1 pistol in the game at launch. Mayhem 4 reduced its effectiveness, a March 2020 buff which increased damage and doubled projectiles at no cost in ammo, put it back in the game, and then Mayhem 2.0 took the edge back off, at least when you start approaching Mayhem 10. Okay, but thanks to the latest Phase 2 buff to pistols in general and Model 1 pistols in particular, it's back. Okay, I haven't verified this with other Model 1 pistols, but the Hellshock got about an 80% damage boost, so the Hellshock deserves another look. Now, Hellshock pros include high damage, high rate of fire, quick reload, and for a pistol, a large magazine size. All these combine into a weapon that delivers very high damage per second, or DPS, for any weapon, not just a pistol. High elemental damage and elemental chance are also additional pluses. This thing procs a fairly high dot fairly easily. Okay, accuracy and handling are decent, and although accuracy bloom with sustained fire spreads out the rounds, this is a pistol. Okay, if we're trying to snipe with this thing, we're doing it wrong. Hellshock cons include charge and recharge time and ammo consumption. Charge time is a mechanic we just have to get used to. It's a Model 1 trade-off. Okay, recharge time affects damage per second, although not as much as we might expect. I'll explain in a bit. Ammo consumption we just need to be aware of and deal with. Okay, it's not as bad as some other weapons. Hellshocks have a number of standard parts, but only 3 variable ones: the grip, the hammer, and the sights, and there are 4 of each of these, resulting in 48 part combinations. The sights don't affect listed stats, however, leaving only 16 different Hellshocks. Now, this table shows all the listed variable parts and their performance modifiers. Stock parts are grayed out because every Hellshock has these. The 4 sights are grayed out because they don't modify any listed stats. Now, this table shows all of the various part combinations and their listed stats as modified by various parts, 16 different variants. Damage and elemental damage figures are percentages relative to the underlying base damage figure for any variant at the same required experience and mayhem level. The highest is 115.5% of the base, and the lowest 95%, a difference of about 21 to 22% between the low one and the high one. There are normally only 6 different base damage figures for any given level of Hellshock. This table summarizes all stats with specific damage figures for level 60 M10. Okay. Calculated DPS numbers for all 16 variants using those stats looks like this, again, as percentages. Now, this does not, however, include initial charging time and, more importantly, recharge time. If we at least ignore the initial charge before the gun starts firing, we still have to account for recharging of the gun after reloading. There's an extra little delay on top of the time it takes to reload the gun. How much time? Well, not much, actually. Initial charge time is a little under a second, less if we have certain parts. Once the gun is charged, the Hellshock is full auto. As long as we hold down the trigger, fire is continuous without the need for additional charging. Once we let up on the trigger, or while the gun is reloading, that charge begins to dissipate. But as long as the trigger is still depressed when the reload cycle ends, the gun remains partially charged. The amount of time to fully recharge the gun in this situation is only about half the initial charge time, so under half a second or less. Now, this is calculated DPS without figuring in recharge. This is the adjusted reload speed, which includes that recharge time. And this is damage per second with that recharge time figured in. Okay, the difference with and without that recharge time figured in is less than 2%. It's not even worth really thinking about. Now, 2 of the things I try and point out in these weapon videos are: 1, what special things do we need to know to get the most out of a weapon? And 2, do parts matter? Does choosing a particular variant matter, and if so, how much? Okay. In the case of things to know, it's a Model 1 pistol. Get used to charge time, get reasonably close, and watch your ammo consumption. Maybe take advantage of that ricochet effect. Now, do parts matter on a Hellshock? That's a matter of opinion. I did a video on the Clairvoyance AR where I pointed out the huge performance difference depending upon parts, sometimes equivalent to 9 or 10 Mayhem levels. I did the same for the Maggie pistol, which only comes in 3 variants that differ in performance by no more than about 5%. Hellshocks fall in between, but closer to Maggie's. 16 variants with about 21%, separating the top and bottom damage and DPS performers. 20% is a little more than 2 experience levels with 2 mayhem levels. Okay, with that in mind, like a lot of weapons, if you have one with your preferred anointment, stick with it, unless or until you find one with the same anointment but better stats. Okay, if your variant is level 60, mayhem 10, but not the highest DPS or damage variant, because you did the math or you looked at the table, I personally would not spend time farming for a better one, but that's up to you. Okay, as always though, don't automatically drop an M9 for an M10 variant. Look at the stats, do some math, ensure you hold on to the true better performer. And that's it for the Hellshock. And then again, it's not. I need to explain the video subtitle. Okay, I actually held off doing this video, not because I knew Gearbox was going to buff the Hellshock, I didn't, but because I discovered a number of inconsistencies in the Hellshock stats. I sent a ticket to Gearbox and was waiting to see if they got around to fixing it, if there was in fact a bug. I haven't heard back yet, and the inconsistencies still exist. Okay, what inconsistencies? Well, there's supposed to be only 4 rates of fire, the highest being 10.19 rounds per second. There's at least 5, the 5th being 10.67. There should only be 2 white text listed bonuses to weapon charge speed, 20% and 28%. But 36% and 42% are also quite common. There are also a lot of instances where the listed base damage and the calculated damage based on parts don't match. This occurs about 40% of the time based on the Hellshocks I've sampled. These are stats for Hellshocks I've looked at. This column is listed damage. This column is what it should be based on parts, and this is the difference. Okay, anything in green is a discrepancy. Now, most of the time, the difference is not obvious because listed numbers usually match expected numbers for a given weapon level, just not the right numbers. We may also, however, occasionally encounter Hellshocks with damage figures in excess of what should be the maximum for a given level. This hazardous variant at 12411 is 10% higher than what it should be, which is 11284 based on parts. It's also about 4.8% higher than what it should be for the highest damage variant for level 60 M10, which is about 11848. Okay, now I've tested most of these weapons and the listed numbers are accurate. They are not mislabeled stats, but true performance numbers. Most, if not all of these numbers also can be explained by at least one part modifier being applied more than once. For these reasons, I assume this is a bug. Okay, the alternative is that Gearbox is messing with things behind the scenes in such a way that giving us access to listed parts and modifiers is kind of pointless, and that makes no sense. Okay, in any case, the listed stats on the front of the card are what they are, and we can trust them. Just don't try and do the math without, by looking at the part marks. It'll mess you up. Okay. Now, fair warning: if Gearbox eventually fixes this, some gun damage and DPS will go down by about 10%. Okay, I'll keep an eye out for this, and hopefully Gearbox will let us know if this happens. Just be aware of the possibility in case your Hellshock suddenly seems a tad weaker than it used to be. And that's it. That's it for the Hellshock anyway. I'm going to try to get some other videos real quick here. These things take longer than I expect because I find things like this. But as always, give me a like, comment in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.